I'm Kenneth, a relationship coach and a psychotherapist. Every relationship is different and every breakup is different. Work with me and you'll get professional help on your situation. And if you're in no contact, focused on personal growth, my workbook series, The Knowledge, will help you make changes like you've never made before. Available now at AskCraig.net. Hi there, I'm Coach Craig Kenneth.
And I'm Coach Victoria.
And in this video, we're going to be talking to you about the no contact rule on a stubborn ex.
So stubborn. Before we get into it, I did want to say that Craig and I are available for coaching sessions. So if you would like to talk about your stubborn ex personally with one of us, you can head to the website and book from there.
You know, one of the things that a lot of people worry about is when they go no contact, they're absolutely convinced that their ex is stubborn. Mm-hmm. They are not the kind of person that will change their mind. And that's it. It's a waste of time. No contact is a waste of time. It's not going to work on them. Now, we understand that everybody has different types of personalities. And people are different and they attach different. And so they bond different and they want different amounts of closeness and space. And yes, we're going to get into some of the differences that you're going to see with people that might make somebody more independent and more quote unquote stubborn, right? So you might have this idea that your ex is absolutely set in their ways and they're not going to reach out for anyone. I've had so many people over the years convinced their ex would never reach out. Never. And then you leave them alone and eventually they do. And then they send you an email or, you hear from them later on. They were like, I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
They came back after this long of time. I never thought it was going to happen.
Yeah, you see your ex as a person who never backs down or even doubles down once they have made a decision. So you can think, oh, man, they're not going to rethink this breakup. They're not going to reconsider this relationship at all, just based on what you've known of them and your experience with them. Mm-hmm. You may have even heard your ex say this to you. Oh, I'm not a type to be friends with my exes. I'm not a type to...
I'll never reach out.
Yeah, I'll never go back to an ex. I never look back. I block all my exes. So you might have already this story and this narrative in your mind of, okay, this is how my ex is going to act if we ever break up. Mm-hmm. So now you're in the breakup and you're thinking, crap, they told me about this. My ex is super stubborn. They are not going to look back. Mm-hmm. So this can cause a lot of panic. And we start to look at our situation totally differently. We think all these no contact videos, it doesn't apply to our ex, that our situation is very unique. Different things that might make you think your ex is stubborn is seeing how they acted in arguments. Mm-hmm. You see that they're generally stubborn in arguments if they've given you the silent treatment. If you notice that they are typically more avoidant, if they have a more avoidant attachment style, if they tend to distance whenever conflict happens. So you think, man, on this breakup, will an avoidant ex ever come back? Will a stubborn avoidant ex ever come back? So, it can get really confusing. We start seeing our partner as being very dismissive and we start to lose hope.
Yeah, and when you're in that situation, it just makes you feel like giving up and just feeling like that nothing that you do is going to work. Nothing is going to change your mind. Now, of course, your behavior is going to have a huge impact on whether or not they do change their mind. Because yes, the more pressure that you put on them, the more they are going to shut down and the less likely they are going to change their mind because they're feeling constricted and nobody wants to feel like they're being told what they have to do. So if you leave them be and stop putting pressure on them, you'll see that the things that you may have experienced with them in the past may change over time. So you might see that, okay, they've been particularly stubborn with people, maybe you, maybe their friends and their family, but if you're patient enough and in no contact and you take off the pressure on them, they can be affected by it and they can have that anxiety build up, that fear, that sense of loss, all of those things, and they may not be brave enough to say, oh, I miss you, but they could be more subtle in their approach with you.
Exactly. It's kind of like a turtle in its shell. When you start poking it and pressuring it, it hides back into a shell, but after some time it peeks out, it starts getting a little bit more curious. Same thing happens with very stubborn exes.
Yeah. Now, anxious people tend to reach out sooner than avoidant people do. That's just the reality of it, because avoidants take longer to process things. They tend to push things down longer, not think about those things. But that doesn't mean that they won't reach out eventually.
Right. And the thing with attachment is that it's innately human. So this is something that affects everyone. Stubborn people, super not stubborn people. Nobody can surpass attachment. So this is something that's really important to think about. And this is something that we've been personally surprised over and over and over again, because there are some situations where we think, man, that person really does double down. Even though we know this information ourselves, we keep encountering situations where, a partner will say never again, and they seem like they mean it. They've taken action on it. They've moved halfway across the planet in some cases.
Yeah.
And still that attachment creeps up and they begin to be curious about that relationship again.
People will surprise you is what we're trying to say. And that's why we say a lot of times you would think that some situations might turn around and they don't, and some that don't look like they ever will do.
Right.
So people will surprise you.
Now, they might be able to compartmentalize and suppress things for a while, especially if they have more of an avoidant attachment style. It's probably the way that they've learned to handle things, is by pushing it down. That makes it more digestible for them. But they also grieve even if they were the dumper. Grief is not something that you can just push aside forever and it disappears. So that's something to keep in mind. Stubbornness in itself is a protective type of behavior. It's a defense mechanism. It's a way to say, hey, I matter, I need to protect myself, what I need and want is important. Which if we zoom out, it's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It can actually be a really healthy thing. And what me and Craig were discussing even before filming this video was talking about how stubbornness really can mean a healthy individualism.
Let's give an example. You might have grown up in a home where your family put certain pressures on you to believe certain things about religion or how to live your life. Well, if that doesn't line up with who you are as an adult and what makes you happy, you have the right to decide, I don't want to do those things. Now, the parents of those kids who are become adults will say, oh, they're stubborn. They're so stubborn. They're so stubborn they don't want to do this or they do want to do that. But it's really a sign of health when you can really reflect on who you are and who you want to be and your values and how you want to live your life. So sometimes being quote unquote stubborn is a healthy sign. Now there is
the other side
of the coin. Side of that. Go ahead, I'll let you cover that.
So the other side of the coin with stubbornness is it could symbolize more of a rigidity in thinking, where it's more of a black and white thinking. Well, if it's not this way, then it's that way, and there's no other way. So sometimes when people are stubborn, they don't really see the gray. And in fact, flexibility can also be a sign of good mental health, because you're able to look at all your options, you're able to hear out different opinions and perspectives, and then make an informed decision from there. You seek to understand. That's a good sign of positive mental health. So you really have to reflect back on yourself, on your relationship, on your ex, and their stubbornness in particular. Did they come from a home that was trying to change who they were, and that's where their stubbornness came out of, and they really just have this strong individualism? Or is it the stubbornness where it's black and white thinking, either we're together, we're not, end of story? So consider all those things. And it could also be somewhere in between, as we're talking about the gray areas.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be either or with that question either.
But like I said earlier, how you behave and how you act is going to have a big part in how they behave and how they act with you, okay? So the more you pressure them, the more they're going to shut down, and the more they're going to be, quote-unquote, stubborn with you. So we know you're incredibly anxious. We know you miss your ex. We know you're thinking about them constantly and obsessing about them. All of that is normal. All of that is natural. It's part of what we go through in a breakup. Don't try and force things. I know you want to, but I have been doing this for a long time, and I have found that forcing people just makes it go poorly. And you don't want to be manipulative and try and get somebody to talk to you who's not ready.
Right.
Right? And I just talked to somebody the other day that did that, and they regretted it because they weren't ready to talk about those things. They thought they were because they had some slight messaging from the ex, and it seemed like the ex was open to even getting together for coffee, and instead of allowing them to reach out, she pressured, and it quickly fell apart. And her feelings were so hurt. Your feelings are going to get really hurt. You're going to be really, really sensitive. So that's another reason you don't want to try and push your ex, because when you try and force them a little bit and they're not receptive, it's really going to hurt, and it's going to really hurt deeply.
Yeah.
And it's going to make their guard go up, and they're going to be less likely to want to communicate with you.
Yeah, and you have to think about that. Stubbornness as a trait that your partner has. If it's on an extreme level, is that really a trait that you want to have in a long-term relationship? It's something that you're going to have to learn how to navigate in the long term.
Yeah.
Really, you want someone who is as enthusiastic about you and who's humble enough to say, okay, I might have these very strong opinions about these things, we might have these issues, but we can negotiate, we can have the communication skills as a partnership to work through this, rather than using that stubbornness as a separation tool always. Now, the issue here with reaching out to them and trying to force them into a conversation, trying to convince them otherwise, first of all, our brain might trick us into thinking, if we can get this super stubborn person to reconsider this relationship, then I am worthy of love. We can start to see it almost as this impossible feat.
Yeah.
Of, if we're able to do this, then it's worth it. So check yourself when you get thoughts like that. That is absolutely not what it means. Your value is your value regardless of their stubbornness or not. But thinking about reaching out to them as a reinforcement to their stubbornness. So them being able to distance and be very stubborn about the breakup and you still pining after them, that sends them the message that their behavior is okay and will be tolerated.
Yeah,
and is
that's
how
true.
you want to be treated.
Yeah.
So think about that. Are you enabling that stubborn behavior by you always being the one to reach out and repair and connect when they've ended the relationship? So some people might become aggravated when that happens. Some stubborn people might be like, I've told you, we've had this conversation over and over again.
Yeah.
They might blame you. They might start turning the tables. So be very careful. And reaching out still leaves you in that place where you have a one-sided relationship. So they really need to be at a place where they're humble enough to be open to a relationship with you again. Their love for you needs to supersede their stubbornness, and I know that's hard. Sometimes, it's not that simple of an equation. Sometimes it's attachment issues. Sometimes it is this hyper-individualism. Sometimes it is rigid thinking. They might have a lot of love and care for you, but those experiences, those things that are overpowering them might be too much.
And another thing that might be going on with them is that they may be feeling pressure from other people that they need to individuate from other people, meaning they might have family pressuring them to do something like to break up with you and to stay broken up with you and sabotage the relationship. Well, they might need to individuate from them and say, you know what? I don't want to lose this person. You guys are going to have to accept them. Like I'm working with this one lesbian couple that the girlfriend hasn't come out to her family, only some of the family. And so she's not ready to come out to the rest of her family, and so she kind of ends this relationship. She has to individuate from her whole family and say, you know what? This is who I love. This is who I want to be with. You guys have to accept me the way that I am. I'm your daughter. You have to love me the way that I am. I understand it may not be what you want for me, but this is what makes me happy, and I'm sure you want me to be happy. And if you don't want me to be happy, then I'm going to have to spend less time with you. So some of those people have to individuate from those people to come back to you. And you need to let them deal with that on their own. In this particular case, the girl is very anxious and she's scared all the time.
And families don't make it easy sometimes. They threaten, they can try to coerce and use power to manipulate.
They'll threaten to abandon you.
Yeah.
And
sometimes worse, sometimes safety is, at risk there.
Yeah.
So I can see how that's a dilemma where it is one that's really complex. And stubbornness can play into it. You know, a person might be very stubborn. No, I'm not going to tell my family because this is the environment that I've been raised in for 20, 30, 40 years. You know, so it can be really difficult. And stubbornness can have a lot of layers underneath. Trauma, different, you know, attachment issues that we talked about before. So something on the surface might seem just like a personality trait, but it might have deeper roots than we even know.
Yep. And you need those things to come out with time. And the more confident that you become, the less likely you are trying to coerce or force or manipulate to go things the way you want them to go. And I really think that is the most confident place for anybody to be. That's why you have to work on yourself and work on your attachment issues, because, you know, right now it may not look like they'll ever come back. It might look like their feelings will never change, but I can tell you that if you leave them alone, feelings do change, and they're a lot more likely to let their guard down and look for an excuse to reach out to you when they don't feel like there's any more pressure there.
Exactly.
All right, so hopefully this one's been helpful to you. And of course, if you want to get our help personally, you could do that on my website, askcraig.net. I do email coaching and I do Skype. Victoria is also available for Skype coaching.
I'm here whenever you're ready to chat.
Just click on her name on the top of the website to schedule with her. But that's it for this video. I'm Coach Craig Kenneth.
And I'm Coach Victoria.
And we will talk with you soon.